Hello, how are you? We have a full house today. That's great. Are you excited for the final talk of today, our final session? Nice. As you can see, our final session today is the Maze Hypertalks. Hypertalks are short, fun, 5-minute knowledge injections. Several different speakers are going to talk about their projects, their experiences, their failures, their sources of inspiration, and their work. This year's talks are hosted by Marina, Díez and Mascha Camino. Mascha, please applause. Yes, obviously, yes. Mascha is a game designer at the Berlin-based indie game studio Machine Mensch. Not anymore, apparently. That bio was not updated on the website. In the past, she's hosted events like Femisphere, highlighting diversity in the game industry, as well as the Indie School Trip, Devolution, and Berlin's Talk and Play series. And Marina is a Spanish award-winning game designer and filmmaker based in Berlin and London. She's the CEO of the Three Cups Games and also the principal game designer at BTF Games for their game, The Berlin Apartment, as well as being a regular speaker at events like GDC, PAX, and EGX. Please give them another round of applause.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. It works. Woohoo.
So nice to be back. I'm very sorry that you all had to wait and see some technical issues, but I feel like it's very on brand, so you're welcome. All right,
Hi. Thank you so much for being all here. Hopefully you will have an amazing time. That was not a joke, but it was good. Today we're going to have amazing talks, and we have an incredible speakers lineup. But
who are you?
Introduce us. Who am I? Okay.
So let's find out.
This is me. I'm a tennis player. No, it's not true. As Pablo said very well, I'm an emotional game designer for BTF Games. That it's a games studio here in Germany. We are based in Berlin, and our game is just there, the Berlin Apartment. Besides that, I'm the CEO at my company, Three of Cups Games. Woo! We make emotional games, and I make films from time to time. And I'm very happy to be with all you here today.
Nice.
Who are you, Mascha?
Well, hello there. I am Mascha Camino. I'm employed as a quest designer at Guerrilla Games, and I'm so glad to be back here at Amaze. I have the honor to co-host the Amazing Hypertalks again, and I'm so excited. We have so many good talks. I wasted so much of your time already, and I'm gonna waste some more. So, it's a pleasure to be back. And I had the slides, and I wanted to ask, who of you had seen the Hypertalks before anywhere? Yeah, oh my God, it's amazing, I'm so happy. Okay, so then maybe you remember, oftentimes the Hypertalks did have a theme song, and I was really picking my brain. I was like, okay, we need a theme song again. I was telling Marina, but it was so difficult this year because, okay, Scooter can only play it so many times. And what? Exactly. And it was very difficult for me this year to find something, but then it came to me, my muse, and I remembered Hyper Music by Muse. So it's very much no thoughts, just vibes, and I felt like that is very fitting for the day. So we're listening to Muse Hyper Music now, and let's hope it works, and we'll see them. I hate to do this to you, but we went over time so long I cannot show you the whole thing. It's amazing, I promise, look it up later. Okay, and I wanted to say, if you squint really, really hard, then you possibly can imagine that 2002 Muse is a little bit of a love child between Björk and Scooter, the two famous artists we had before the Hypertalk music. Maybe you have to squint so hard that you actually close your eyes and imagine it, but it works, I promise. All right, but enough of the yapping. Let's continue because the Hypertalks are about to start, actually.
Yes, and we want to say, if you never came before to the Hypertalks, these were brought to Amaze by our very good friend, and I'm super proud and delighted that this year we have the opportunity to host them. As I said at the beginning, we have an amazing speakers lineup. It's all women, but one person, because we couldn't find any men to fill our speakers lineup. So Sopsky is going to be our diversity hire.
Yay! All right.
Cool. So we are ready to go.
Yes, and we're gonna have 8 talks today, 5 minutes each. And we're gonna start with Almut, and I'm gonna say a couple of words about her. So Almut is also a sound designer, Foley artist, voice actor, composer, and she's wearing all the hats. Amazing work, and her work includes Anno 1800, Through the Darkest of Times, You Suck at Parking, I Take That Personally, Nuts, and Pizza Possum. And I'm super delighted to see her here on stage. So give a warm welcome and applause to Almut.
thank you so much, Almut. That was very relaxing. So now that we are all relaxed, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. The next person that we have, yes, another round of applause. The next person we have is Melissa Nzuza. Melissa is external ops manager at Free Lives and a director of the Playtopia Foundation. Her passion lives within the growth of the South African games industry and the creation of a more diverse and inclusive industry. Melissa fosters these goals by hosting community events, helping organize Playtopia Festival, and providing funding opportunities to local game developers through her work at the foundation. Please give her a big applause.
Hi, my name is Melissa Nzuza. That very formal introduction doesn't really tell you a lot about what I do, but I work at Free Lives, an amazing indie studio from Cape Town. We've made games like Broforce, Scorn, Tyranno, but that is not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the importance of community. My talk is going to focus on the game development industry just because that's what I do. But the advice that I want to give you applies to everybody, no matter what you do. Disclaimer, I don't make games. I just boss around the people that do make them. And I'm also from South Africa, which explains why I'm so beautiful. But the reason I'm telling you that is not about my looks. It's so that you understand that I'm seeing it from a perspective of a South African in the games industry. Although it will apply to everyone, most likely. When I first got into games, I noticed something very early on. There weren't a lot of people that looked like me in the industry. I was a young black woman with little experience going into an industry that's dominated by white men. If you Google game developer, this is what comes up. It's a pretty accurate representation. There's 80% white dudes, and then a few women and a person of color. That's the stats, unfortunately. If you look to your left, right now, in the audience, look to your right, even behind you for good measure, there's most likely a white man with brown hair near you, right? Right? Exactly. So when I got into the industry, I was a little scared. I was like, oh, real white up in here. Something's not looking right in here. And I felt like I was a little bit in danger. And when I say I was scared and in danger, I don't mean real danger. No one's gonna hurt me, But I was a bit intimidated and a bit insecure about entering the industry. I wondered, how come there's no people that look like me around here? Are they not interested in making games? That didn't make sense to me. I was like, no, I'm gonna find out what's going on around here. And I found out that there are people that are not brown-haired white men making games. It's just that they're not the majority. And so I decided that I'm going to find my people. And finding my community is what saved me. I went from insecure and anxious to thriving and confident in no time. I know it's hard to believe that I was ever not all this, but And that's what I'm here to do today. I'm here to encourage you to find your community. In my pursuit for community, I founded The Makers Massive. The Makers Massive is it started actually as a very small Discord server, which was just supposed to be for local Cape Townian devs to meet each other and communicate, because it was post-pandemic. Everyone was like, I don't actually know any other devs except the people I work with. Where am I gonna meet them? We're in a pandemic. And so it started as a Discord server, but in less than a year, it's grown into a thriving community of people from all over the world, and you should all go join. Find me for the link. And now we have a physical space in Cape Town where we host events like community meetups, 8-hour game jams, and just serve the purpose of being a place where people in the industry can go to feel safe and to work from and to meet other people that do what they do. My issue with game development is that it's, by its nature, a very lonely process. Even if you're in a team, you're always working alone technically, right? You're sitting at your screen doing your work. You're not really engaging with other people that much. And it's even more possible when you're a solo dev to end up isolating yourself from the world, unintentionally. And so I'm not saying you should all go out and start like making Discord servers, because we already have too many of those. But I'm here to give you some advice on what you can do so that you're not so isolated and don't feel like you're alone in what you do. Number one, it's a little rude, but... Oh, no. There you go. Go touch grass. Go outside. I know that sounds like very obvious advice, but I'm serious. Like, go outside, touch grass. Especially if you work at a screen all day. Being at a screen all day has like terrible effects for your like mental and physical health if you don't take breaks. Get up, take a walk, drink some water, do some stretches, have a snack, whatever. But sitting on your computer for 10 hours a day, it's not doing anything for you. Go touch grass, like SpongeBob said. Secondly, find places where you feel comfortable and go there. Spaces where you know there's going to be people like you. Maybe it's a meetup, maybe it's a party, maybe it's an amazing festival. Oh, I hate it when I say amazing festival like a maze. It happens every time. A wonderful festival like a maze. Wherever you know that you're going to feel welcomed and comfortable and you're going to meet people that have the same interests as you. Third, get involved in your community. There is no community without you. Join local groups, join Discord servers, just talk to people. Use sites like meetup.com to find out if there's events happening in your area. And if you don't like any of the events that are happening or there isn't something happening in your city, host your own thing. And it doesn't have to be anything big. If you're shy and you don't want to do like, you know, a big meetup or something, have a WhatsApp group, do something. All I'm saying is just have some contacts with the outside world. Do not sit in the house and not communicate with your peers. And lastly, but most importantly, is be the person you want to see in the world. If you wish there was someone who could advocate for you when you didn't have a voice, then be that person for someone else who hasn't found their voice yet. If we want to change the industry for the better, it starts with us. Do what you can in your community. There's no action that is too small. In my culture, we have a Zulu saying that is umuntu, ngumuntu, ngabantu, which usually just is shortened to the word ubuntu. So Ubuntu loosely translates to I am because we are. Ubuntu embodies how interconnected we all are, and it's the recognition of your fellow beings and champions a philosophy that prioritizes collective well-being over individual pursuits. And so what I'm hoping you take away from this is the importance of looking after yourself and those around you. That you leave here with the spirit of Ubuntu in your heart. And that realization that there's a power in community. You can survive alone, but you can thrive through community. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I hope that we will all thrive today in this community. I loved your talk a lot. So thanks again. Here are some hands once more. Thank you so much. And next up, we have Margarete Jahrmann. And Margarete is in the field of game art, innovative concepts, head of the new department, experimental game cultures, and has been a pillar in this respective field for a bunch of years, and is art curator of the new virtual play savings bank. And we're delighted to have her with us here today. So welcome on stage, Margarete.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and it's an honor and pleasure to be among this beautiful lineup of renowned speakers and of emerging fields. And what I want to show you is an emerging field, even if I have a long history in the arts and in playing with games. This is something that we just launched in Vienna, which is Experimental Game Cultures, which is a studio where a group of artists, scientists, researchers are collaborating. So it is about developing innovative concepts in fields that connect the human and the non-human. We heard about the importance of going out, and we go out to enter fields of play between human and non-human actors, between introduced mechanics and experimental mechanics, which we always developed in the arts, in art installations, in interactive pieces where play was the main method, the ludic method. Ludus is the game. It is role-play political games, games in nature, which are very core, I think, for us as a political issue again. Then we also develop low-interaction games, ludic objects, the interfaces that you development we see here in the shows that are very core and central to the new forms of play and non-human play in these hybrid ludic assemblage, as I call it. Because going hybrid, this concept of the assemblage is something where we have a connection of art, of scientific approaches, and of socially relevant action. And I really talk because I can connect myself in my function as an artist, but also as an expert for diverse funding bodies, and also as a connector in artistic research projects where we directly address also scientific fields, also from the consciousness science, the cognitive sciences, the natural sciences, emerging technologies, together with prototypes of experimental game cultures, where we focus on a conscious change of the established dynamics of play and world, because the core thing is world, or the experience of the world. Here you see some of the emerging artists I curate, Alia Davletova with a avatar dance. This dance should move actually, but it doesn't. She dances beautifully. And also we have these ludic orchestra forms where we transform in collective pieces, also in shows, where we enter game events like that. I was very happy being here at the Maze again, where we see a connection between exhibition setup and also a play testing setup. The feedback that you give, the talks that we have over emerging games, that's the most valuable thing that I can do also with the students I have in Vienna. We are based in Vienna. I think that's also interesting thing. I was before many years also in other, as a consultant in Zurich, in Switzerland, at the university there, but here we have this focus on experimental testing and subjective experience of possibilities of the world. That's really what we do. We don't simulate the world. We test experiences of the world. And also in these preparations, in the kickoff with a collective drone play, the new department I just started, it's a master's program also. We started it with a collective drone play. Also in this political moment of time, where drones are not only the toys, but where they are devices of war. But we can use these drones for a collective piece, for an audio piece, where we all have only one rule: don't bully the other, or don't touch the other, and get to the center of the collective room, and then an art piece evolves out of it. And that is an improvised game, a performative game in this Kassenhalle space. So that's our home in Vienna, from Art Deco environment. And after the first year, which was just recent, it's now 2 years, I was lying down on a bed in the center as an artist myself, together with my PhD student, and doing a do-nothing game that was featured at the Spike magazine on a new issue on AI and art. And I come to this last topic here already, because doing nothing is, of course, a form of resistance also. Je ne veux pas travailler, doing nothing. It's an activity also, because you cannot do nothing. Also, the minimal action of lying on a bed and looking to each other, it can be picked up with electronic coils and devices, and then you have a sort of minimal game where every micro movement and micro performativity is put into a synchronicity with the other player, and then the interface evolves out of that setting. That's part of our live experimental game releases that we do, having a chess game with Regina Teisel-Pokorner. She's a simultaneous player, the Grandmaster of Vienna, Austria. She played against 42 and won against everybody. In parallel, we were making a movie out of each brainwave signals of the other player. Playing with this, you can see it here in the village. We have all our players in 3D, and this is the virtual show I was curating now, the Play Savings Bank, because the place I was lying was a former bank, eine Kassenhalle, and there was zero action in the savings bank, and here we also have this very minimal action, okay, in the savings bank. And I think it's almost, that's the interface, hybrid, physical, no keyboard free zone, mouse free zone. You only make the putter play with absurd objects. That's my summing up, I would say, connecting also with biospheres and biomaterial in our bioludic lab, and having a woodwalk with EEG, why not? Using the record and the signals for the final prototype that I want to present together with our research partner Mark Köckelberg, who is also a AI ethics expert, who was in this new European Union AI Act, which is now released, involved for the regulations, but also seeing what can be the experience that we make in relation to AI. How can we feel that? And maybe with a minimal one-button game. Push one button and play with the whole system, where you connect the different generators of prompts, of play, and of different images. So that was it. The beautiful image emerges, trained by Margarete. And thank you so much having these with a brain band control.
Nice. So let's see the next talk. And now I'm delighted to announce our next speaker. Pri is a video games UX UI designer, co-founder of Cricalab Studios, Women in Games ambassador, and mental health first aider. She's passionate about designing meaningful digital experiences and advocating for accessibility, diversity, and inclusion in the games industry. And she's a very good friend of mine. We complain about Germany together, so please give her a big applause.
Hi, everyone. I'm so nervous right now. So my talk is about curse of knowledge. Has anyone here heard of it? Oh, nice. OK. So by definition, we'll start with the curse of knowledge is a cognitive bias that occurs when an individual who is communicating with others assumes that others have information that is only available to themselves, assuming they all share a background and understanding. So essentially, this means that you might not be aware of how much you know, and you will make assumptions about how much other people will know. And this especially happens with things that are very obvious or common sense to you. Let's do an experiment about this. Oh my God, OK. I'm going to tap a song, and you will try to guess it. If you do guess it, just try not to say the name, and wait. Let's start. OK, you got it. So anyone else got the song? Please raise your hand. OK, so can any of you shout the name of the song? Happy Birthday. Yes, so the song was Happy Birthday. And now that we all share the same level of knowledge, I'm going to do it again, and you will see that you will say, oh yeah, it was so obvious. Yeah. So that was an experiment called Tappers and Listeners, and it was done by Elizabeth Newton, who was a Stanford graduate in the 90s. When she asked the tappers about a prediction about how many people will know their song, they said 50% of them would know. But we also just saw that it's only 2.5% of the people, and actually maybe even less. So I have some more examples that I think are pretty fun. We will see. You might be familiar with this toilet flush design. at least I'm not from Europe, and I don't know if this is a European thing. But what I really like about this is how they place that paper there, and they said just forget about the right button, forget about the line that divides us, just press here to flash, and just forget the design. We have this example. I took this picture the other day, and you might say, well, that obviously means that you cannot eat food inside the place, but the place was a restaurant. And it actually meant that you're not allowed to bring food from the outside inside this restaurant. And something funny about this is that I was with my little brother, and we wanted to eat some burgers, and he said, oh no, Pri, I don't think we can eat burgers there. So, yeah. And this is the last one, and I will just... I will just let you think about it. Like, I have no idea. Yeah. And there's many, many more examples that you can ask me and I can tell you all about. So how to break the curse of knowledge? I have a few tips. One would be know who your audience or target is. Because let's say if you want to write a blog about astrophysics, you already know who you're writing for, so it's fine. Like you don't have to write like you're writing for a 5-year-old or to me. Work with a diverse team, because it also happens that you're so immersed in your own culture that you might think that so many things are very obvious to you, but then when you, I don't know, talk to someone else, you will realize that it's not really that obvious. Think about your own struggles, and this applies to everything. Whenever you're using a product, whenever you're playing a game or doing something, I don't know, whatever, just think about something that you would struggle with, and maybe you would be able to, I don't know, don't make too many assumptions. Ask for feedback outside your team, whatever your team is, because it happens a lot that you're so immersed in whatever you're doing that you just forget about what people without the knowledge that you have will understand. Stick to conventions when possible. Usually my bosses don't like when I say things like that, because it's fine when you want to reinvent the wheel with something, but it's not always necessary to do that. And unless you really have a reason to go and just think completely out of the box, people already use a lot of products, and they are used to so many things. So it's not necessary to always be the pioneer you think you are. And just don't oversimplify things. We just saw that in the toilet flush design. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Here's the emoji again, but he already did it. He did so well. Cool. Now, I did actually love the button designs. I will implement those into my home now. Next, we have Rachel Heleva, and Rachel is a BizDev and scouting manager, a mission-driven indie game publisher focused on thinky games that empower players of all types to engage in creative problem solving. And give a big applause for Rachel.
Howdy, Amaze. So I'm constantly using this word thinky when I'm talking about the games I like and the games I get to work with, and I usually sound like I'm talking in tongues or gibberish because what the heck do I mean by thinky games, right? But I really love these types of games. I fell in love with them a long time ago. They're the types of games where you're solving problems and your brain is like on fire and you're having eureka moments, and they're really cool. And I get to work at this company now that was actually founded entirely to support these types of games. And it's amazing getting to see like the network of developers who are all like working with these types of experience. So what the heck do I mean by thinky games? So when I say thinky games to people, usually they think I mean puzzle games, which like you're not wrong. These are very thinky. Like, you do have to like think through how to solve them, but the whole point of using the word thinky instead of saying puzzle is to point to like a broad design philosophy and a through line that's actually present in a lot of different types of games. So puzzle is like a niche within the range of thinky. But I'm also talking about like a lot of different types of games. Systemic games that have like resource management, or tactics games, or deck builders, games where you can do a lot, like work with chains of logistics or chains of reasoning, and there's a lot of different types of them out there. I love seeing all the different like subgenres that can have this unique like brain burning feeling in them. It's so fun to see unique takes on it. And so what do I really mean when I'm saying like, okay, thinky games? Well, they embody a certain set of design principles that you can see in a lot of different like subgenres, but there's this through line of like common things you're gonna see a lot. So this idea of progressive complexity that leads to mastery, like a thinky game is usually going to introduce you to a set of like principles or mechanics or a system, and then you gradually figure out how that system works over time, and it should be getting increasingly challenging so that you're constantly having to learn and interact with the system. And thinky games also should have transparency of information, right? Like if I can't predict what's going to happen or come up with reasonable conclusions, I can't really think through how I'm going to progress. So that's a really important one. Like in Slay the Spire, I get to see what my enemy is gonna do in a couple of turns. I get to see status effects, and you start having this really fun experience of things layering on top of each other. You get to plan like all these different moves in advance. And then something else that's really important in thinky games is this idea of like emergent thinking. So, okay, I get introduced to a set of mechanics and a set of principles, and I figure those out over time, but at some point there's gonna be a twist, right? Like something new is introduced, and all of a sudden I have to rethink how I engage with the whole system. I think Against the Storm does this really well because you start out with, it's like a resource management game. You start out with certain character classes, but then they introduce like new classes like at like hour 10 or hour 15, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to rethink how I'm engaging with all the materials and properties in this game. Super fun. So there like are a lot of different genres that have these sort of like thinky traits inherently in them. Typically all systemic, but like resource management games, which could be city builders, automation games. Games like RimWorld and Factorio tend to be super thinky, pure puzzle, of course, but also like tactics games like Into the Breach, Tactical Breach Wizards, deck builders like Slay the Spire, Dicey Dungeons, and detective games, Return of the Obra Dinn, pretty much anything Lucas Pope makes. Case of the Golden Idol is a great one. And I'm really excited to see like more people experiment with this design philosophy and figure out like how to make it present in other types of games or subgenres that aren't listed here. I think that thinkiness is a really cool way to get players immersed and truly engaging with the system, and then you can lead them to such interesting moments of interacting with the game, like alongside that eureka moment, compare it with so many other like different layered experiences. Yeah, and that's my whole spiel on thinky. So now I sound a little less like I'm speaking in tongues when I'm saying this word a lot. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel. Our next speaker is going to be Astrid Refstrup. Astrid is Developer Relations and Business Development at Wings, supporting their portfolio studios and looking for new games by female and gender minority leads. She was previously the CEO and founder of Triple Topping Games, advisor to Kowloon Knights, and served on the board of Global Game Jam. Please, applause.
I made my nails in a maze theme, and this is not what the Hypertalk is about. I'm just extremely proud of them. Also, the fur fell off, so yeah, but they're still beautiful. Okay, so this Hypertalk is a tiny, tiny guide to not waste your time, hope, resources on people who can't figure out to say no. So actually, it's about what scouts say and what they're actually saying if you're pitching publishers and game funds and investors. And I'm doing this talk because I've been running my own game studio and I've been working with project financing for games for a very long time and met a lot of developers in that process that are often not really sure where in the process they are of getting their game signed. And that lets people hanging and sometimes not being able to take the right decisions in the right time for their game, their studio, and their own personal finances. We all know that indie games are hard to make. So this is very common, like maybe you are showing your game here or somewhere else and someone approaches you and they play the game and you're gonna talk to them and they will be like, hey, send me your demo and pitch. And there could be like two meanings to this. Of course, it can be, I'm really interested, I would love to see your demo and pitch. But you will need to have a little bit more in that conversation to actually get a feel for what's happening, because it's definitely also a way, like you don't want to be negative in that situation, you want to be welcoming, you want to create a network. So very often you're also just saying it to network with those developers, know what's happening overall in the games industry. But I have met developers that thought that this sentence meant that they were like very eager to sign this game. And it's not that you cannot say it as a scout, but you just have to be aware that those simple words can mean the world, especially for people that are very new to the industry. So this is another one. I had that often because in Triple Topping we made some really cool but really weird games. And people were always intrigued by it, but very often people would say, keep me posted. And in the beginning, I would feel like, hey, it's because you want to have like updates, and maybe you want to, like you're not signing right now, you just want to see the game a little bit more progressed or something like that. So I would like guess a lot when people said this. But I know now that very often it is just like, hey, I want to be updated on what you're doing, but it's not necessarily leading to a deal. You could in this question like maybe ask some honest questions and be like, hey, is this something that you see yourself signing? Could you give me an honest answer on that? Like that's a totally valid thing to do. So budget is too high. That's, especially right now, we hear that a lot. And then also the budget is too high, and then you maybe go back to the team and say like, hey, we have to do this game in half time. Maybe we should like eat less nice food and more cup noodles or something like that, and then our budget will be lower. But again, here you need to ask some more questions to get what actually is the reasons behind this answer. Because budget is too high can also be, this budget is too high for us. So for example, in Wings, we sign games up to 500K. If the game is 700K, it's a really good game at a really fair price. It's just the budget is too high for us. It can also be that it's a fair budget for what you want to do. This is what it costs to make this thing, but they are unsure if the game can actually become profitable, which is the goal when you're investing money into a game. So if you just get like a short sentence like this, you should like dig a bit deeper to figure out what it actually means. Yes, I've definitely done this. Long list of unasked feedback. And this, I think, is that goes out to all of us working in game funds and publishing. It's really good to give feedback because we all want to improve, we all want to be better, we all want to understand why a no is a no. But the long list of unasked feedback sometimes leads developer to change the whole game, because then they think if they're changing everything like this, then they're gonna get the game signed. Yeah. We love it, your game, followed by ghosting, silence. This will also lead developers to think that you are close to signing the game. And if they're not like giving you a precise estimate on timeline, they're probably not signing your game. They're just like keeping you engaged. 1 minute left, I think. No, that's all of them. I made it in 6 minutes. Thank you.
So much. Thank you. Next up, thank you so much, Marina. All right, next up we have Marina's introducing who we have next up because I went on stage even though it's not my turn. Hello, Marina.
So thank you so much for being here. Our next talk is Sara Lempiäinen. Sara advocates for inclusive design and has a background in community management. Today, she designs and implements systems for The Sims 4 and aims to broaden her perspective by learning from other creative platforms such as theater and architecture. Please, a big applause.
Ooh, that was spicy. Hello, I am the last talk for the day, then you are free to go. So I am here to talk to you about what we can learn from improv theater to encourage a positive environment for players. So in sandbox games like Minecraft and The Sims, players are free to create their own worlds and stories as they go. While there are constraints in these games, it can still feel overwhelming and players may be left without knowing where to start or how to keep going. So then when you add a social element, like in games like Minecraft, this also unlocks co-creation between players. It can lead to chaos, but it can also lead to great things. I have a background in community management, so I know how hard it is to foster an environment where people behave nicely to each other. I just want to give a shout out to all the CMs here today because you all are fucking warriors. So how can we then encourage players to be compassionate towards each other and thus creating a more inclusive environment? And how do I, as a player, stay in the flow while playing games that allow co-creation? I've worked with multiple designers who have a background in theater, and I found that to be so fascinating since theater is a creative platform for telling stories, just like games are. Then there's improv theater, which doesn't give actors a script to follow, but relies on their imagination while they perform. And this sounds very similar to players co-creating in games. So you don't follow a script while playing games such as Minecraft. In improv theater, you're always at least two actors interacting with each other and sometimes interacting with the audience. Imagine the actors being the players and the audience being the world. So how do we enable emergent gameplay that is welcoming for everyone? You could leave it up entirely to the players to do it on their own, similarly to if the actors performing an improv show rely solely on each other for the storytelling. But having the world interact with the players is an additional way you can enable emergent gameplay, similarly to having an audience interacting with the actors on stage by giving them prompts. So introducing a little nudge here and there to encourage certain behaviors can be helpful to keep the players going, but also add an element of surprise, which leads to improvisation. Improv actors believe that rules and constraints free us up to improvise. Improvisation is a natural part of life. You do it every single day without even thinking about it. For example, if you're faced with a challenge, you figure out how to overcome it using the resources available to you. So if we go back to the concept of improv play and what we can learn from improv theater, the aim of this talk is to share a source of inspiration. Hopefully this can be fun for you. It's been really fun to me to write this. So there are some, I think I skipped. Sorry, I forgot about the slides. There are some general skills needed for improv theater, and the most important one is collaboration. Collaboration is taking yourself out of the equation, getting rid of that ego because it's not about you. You are there to support your stage partner and make them look good. You're there to be a team player. And this takes us to another skill, which is listening and communicating. You could communicate verbally, you could use body language, but the important thing is that you are always reading each other. Listening is the willingness to change. If I'm not ready to change based on what you're telling me, I was never listening to begin with. I'd already made up my mind. So really focus on reading your partner and paying attention. And saying yes. If you ever do an exercise with someone where you ask a question and then have them answer yes, and then try asking the same question and have them answering no, you will notice that a series of yeses will take your story somewhere, whereas a series of nos doesn't take you anywhere. Now, append that yes with an and this is what unlocks that co-creation. Yes, and. You want to avoid blocking and just follow. The opposite of this is no but. You want to avoid negating what others have to say because this doesn't encourage collaboration. You cannot continue crafting your story without doing some repair first. In stressful situations, we lean towards no but rather than yes and. We close in, we retreat. We retreat ourselves because it's a natural defense mechanism for us as human beings. So try to instead listen to what's offered, identify the part of the story that's useful to you, and then add to that story. You don't have to accept 100% of the information that is offered, but you also want to be a team player and get along for the long run. So again, find what you like about what the other person said and add your own twist to it. And this is kind of what keeps you in the flow. An important part of expanding on the story is also spontaneity. You're crafting a story on the spot, which requires imagination. So if you're having a moment where you're not able to craft a story on the spot, just start over. And this takes us to another skill, which is to let yourself make mistakes. Making a mistake should never feel punishing. Be okay with mistakes and just dare to take chances. If you allow for mistakes, you need to allow for mistakes because otherwise you will not grow in the other areas. And then it's just about getting up and trying again. And lastly, don't overthink because you don't have to be funny, you don't have to be smart, you don't have to be telling the truth. Remember, you're crafting this story using your imagination and just have fun with it. Thank you so much. And if you ever get the chance to do an improv theater class, do it because it's fun and silly. It's really scary. And that's also kind of the point to take you out of the comfort zone. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much. That's a wrap. So applause to you all. Woo! Thanks for being so patient.
Thank you. If you have any questions to our speakers, we don't really have time right now, but hopefully you will find them online. You have their names in the program of Amaze. So yeah, just for you to know that they are available and you can ask them.
Yes. And we also wanted to say thanks to all the speakers, thanks to Amaze. This was amazing, and we hope to see you all next year. And now someone else is coming on stage again, and we loved to be entertaining you. And thank you so much for all the speakers. And
also thank you so much to Mascha, because
Marina.
At the beginning I was gonna host this alone, but because I feel that together everything is better, I asked her, because she's my very good friend, to be on a stage.
Yes, thank you.